There are a million different styles of junk journals that we can create, and as we're searching online for inspiration, we'll find that a lot of the journals we come across are rooted in specific journal aesthetics. Underneath beautiful images, we'll find keywords such as shabby chic, boho, grunge, aesthetics. And as you go down the rabbit hole of different aesthetics, you'll want to take what you learned and repurpose it for what you need based off of your ability, the materials that you have, and the vision that you have for your project. So in this video, I want to do a deep dive of different junk journal styles aesthetics. Some of them you may be familiar with, others maybe not so much. And it's my hope that by the end of this video, you'll be able to identify common elements within these different aesthetics that we'll explore, so you'll be able to use them in your own projects. If you're new here, my name is Bree from 1134 Press, where we share bookmaking, journaling, and papercraft inspiration to help you document your life. And if you're not new here, welcome back. My finger is doing a lot better. I have some mobility. So hopefully in the upcoming videos, I'll be able to get back into my normal crafting videos. Until then, I hope you enjoy this lecture/video essay that no one asked for. Before we get into the different junk journal aesthetics, let's first define some terms. Aesthetics are made up of different elements that create a specific look. And when they're pulled together and repeated by an artist or a community of artists, we then can slap a label onto the grouping of these elements and give them an aesthetic name, such as boho. For creative journals, I've identified these elements that create the look of an aesthetic as materials, color palettes, motifs, and ethos. There are more elements that we could consider, but I think those stand out the most. Obviously, no two shabby chic journals are going to look alike, but if you put these journals next to each other side by side, you'll see some commonalities in the way that the artists use these elements that are specific to the shabby chic aesthetic. And I would also like to point out that what makes each journal unique within an aesthetic is the artist's choice in style and theme. I've found that we use the terms aesthetic, style, and theme interchangeably when we're talking about the look of our work. However, those are three very different and distinct things. I thought this would be a great opportunity to give you the definition of style and theme. Theme is a reoccurring idea or subject that's explored throughout a piece of art. We use theme to give your journal meaning. Theme can be used visually, like using imagery of bunnies, Easter eggs, and carrots to create an Easter themed journal. Or you can use the type of content you put inside of your book to create theme, like writing a daily gratitude log or using receipt clippings throughout the journal. Theme differs from aesthetics because aesthetics is concerned with the look of your journal, whereas theme is concerned about the meaning of it. And style is about the choices we make to design our journals. So do you take a minimalist approach or a maximalist approach? An analogy that I like to use, which is probably not a good one, is that aesthetics are the guardrails in a bowling alley. Style is the spin that you put on the bowling ball, and theme is the ball rolling down the lane, making a connection with the pins at the end. I think it's helpful to know the definitions of these terms because then they'll help us make the best decisions for what we want to create and to execute the vision that we have for our projects. And if you'd like me to make a video that goes into more details about style and theme, just let me know in the comments. But until then, let's check out some guardrails. If the Victorian era and science fiction had a baby, it would be steampunk. Materials that are most commonly used within the steampunk aesthetic include metals and metallic paints. That means using gears, keys, brads, safety pins, and eyelets, and metal closures. Metallic paints and waxes are often used to mimic metals. Other commonly used materials include crackle paints and distressed oxides. Brass and copper tones are a signature of steampunk. If you're not using traditional neutral colors like shades of brown and tan, then steampunk colors lean more towards the darker hue of the color spectrum and often treated with a metallic finish or with distressed ink. Steampunk often uses imagery of technology from the late 19th century as its source of inspiration, coupled with iconography from the Victorian era, sketches from inventions, and commonly used typography from commercial products from that era are also used to embellish these journals. There are so many ways to approach the Goth aesthetic, and each subgenre has its own twist and spin on these common elements. I would say that the Goth aesthetic is more concerned with the mythological, magical, and darker side of life and art. You'll see that represented in the materials that they use, such as lace, velvet. Metal pieces are used for embellishing in these books and are often ornate with really pretty flourishes. Gems, pendants, and charms are also a favorite. Red, black, and purple are the traditional colors that you will see in Goth style journals. However, white and jewel tones are also popular within this aesthetic. Goth aesthetics often uses magical and macabre iconography, such as cauldrons, candles, astrology, potions, etc. Black lettering and script fonts are the typefaces of choice within its pages. Motifs also take the form of mythological, like fairies, Greek gods and goddesses, and other religious iconography. Shabby chic is hyper feminine. It is distressed and weathered. It is an ode to vintage softness. Lace, pearls, and ribbon are used the most in these journals. Distressed inks for vintage vibes err on the lighter side. And for colors, pastel color palettes reign supreme, with light distressing with tans, creams, and blush hues. Common motifs are vintage illustrations of flowers, birds, honeybees. Think of a Victorian garden tea party. Also, domestic iconography like sewing and vintage household products are often used. Light and dark academia aesthetics are influenced by classical literature and Ivy League universities. Leather, craft paper, and book pages are the most commonly used materials. This aesthetic draws inspiration from simple traditional notebooks, as well as elaborate vintage and rare books that are typically reserved for researchers in a library. The approach to color is different depending on what side of the aesthetic you choose. I like to think of an old library when considering dark academia, so that means mahogany, burgundy, Oxford blue, and tans. And light academia utilizes creams, browns, and an understated fall color palette. You'll see a lot of books, candles, marble statues, feathered dip pens, and other antiquated stationery are frequently used motifs. Typewriters and script fonts are a preferred choice for type. You'll also see astrology, mathematics, and other signifiers of academic studies adorning these pages. When I look at boho journals, I think of them as an eclectic mix of colors, patterns, and textures that you collected on a summer-long trip. Boho is both a relaxed style and bold. Lace, fringe, beads, and sequins are commonly used to embellish these journals. Scrap fabric and stitching is also very popular. Boho journals can range from bright jewel tone colors to pastels, but are often playing with multiple colors within those respective hues. Nature motifs are the most common images, but this aesthetic is really about the patterns. Ditzy flowers, flourishes, mandala, and psychedelic patterns recur the most. The true junk journal aesthetic is the most eclectic of the bunch. I think the beauty within this aesthetic is its commitment to utilizing household products and reclaimed found junk to create art. Magazines, junk mail, food packaging, napkins, old clothes and buttons, receipts, literally anything that you would have otherwise thrown into the trash bin can be used in these journals. There is no set color story for true junk journals. The artist can use their found materials as is or alter them with paints and dyes to create a cohesive color palette. And just like with color, the motifs an artist uses is decided on what materials they've collected. The 6 junk journal aesthetics that I went over is just scratching at the surface of what's out there. So to wrap this all up, if we go back to the definition of aesthetics, it's really just a filter or a tool to help guide you make decisions on the way that you want your journal to look. If you'd like to see how I incorporate aesthetics within my junk journal process, I recommend that you watch the next video, which I'll put a short preview clip of at the end of this one. And that's all I got. Until then, I will see you in the next video. Bye. Step 2, creating the skeleton, collecting materials, pages, and binding. This step is one of my favorites. This is the time where I'll watch YouTube videos, scroll on Pinterest and Instagram to gain inspiration for techniques. I'll take notes on things that I may want to try as it pertains to layout, materials, and so forth. And then I'll start creating a journal kit. But as I'm choosing papers and materials to create my kit, I'm constantly reminding myself of the theme for this journal. Does this vintage ledger paper represent that love is old as time? And although that may be a silly question to ask, it's something that I repeat to myself or ask as I'm choosing materials to make sure that I'm staying on the path to best represent the story that I want to tell. Step 3, adding content.